this is my thoughts, my sharing on perceptual positions, because I find that there's quite a lot of missed opportunities in the way that people often use it. First of all, when is it appropriate? Well, you can try it at any time, but typically it lends itself to those situations where, well, let's say two people are involved, your client, yourself, and another. A lot of people think that that's got to be a conflict situation, and it certainly lends itself to that, but it doesn't have to be. It might be that you want to explore other people's perceptions of you in order to improve an already good relationship, or you want to step into the shoes of a reader or somebody browsing your web, for example. It's a way of getting learning from being in different perspectives about a situation. It doesn't have to be a bad situation, although it's very often used for that, used for a situation where perhaps rapport has broken down in some way, or there's some kind of impasse. And it certainly often works very well for that. The thing about it is it's not just about, the outcome isn't about a fix for that situation. It goes beyond that scenario. The thing about perceptual positions is that it provides an opportunity to get a learning for life on the basis that situations that we experience, and let's say ones where we're having a difficulty of some kind, the belief that we can apply to this is that they're happening because there's something we can learn, and not just for this situation, but for other situations, on the basis that if we don't take the learning from this scenario or from this through this person, then that pattern, that kind of issue is going to return, it's going to repeat in many ways. So the steps of the perceptual positions are, first of all, to put yourself into your own shoes. Easier said than done if you're not used to doing that, to really connect with what it's like to be in this scenario, in a specific scenario, not generally. This is a key factor for many NLP studies and coaching sessions. Put yourself in a specific scenario that's characteristic, a real one, that is characteristic of what happens, let's say, between you and this other person. And be aware of what it's like for you. It's very valuable to have a coach take you through these processes, because you can be blind to the patterns that you have and be continuing perhaps slippages between different perceptions, and having somebody to keep you on track while you explore the content can help avoid that. So the first step is to put yourself into your own shoes and be aware of what it's like, what's happening, and what's the effect on you. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you experiencing? Simply. And then to break state, so to shake that up so that you're not carrying those emotions into the next phase of the process. And then to put yourself into the shoes of the other person. Facilitating this is another thing altogether, and I can talk about that separately. But let's leave that for the moment. You know, you might find somebody is theoretically thinking that they're in the shoes of the other person, but they're still in their own shoes. So put yourself in the shoes of the other person, so that, for example, you can see you and hear you as if you are in the other person's shoes, and experience what it's like. And trust your intuition. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be absolutely right about this, but it's remarkable how close you can get to what the other person is experiencing. But that isn't what's important, because it's your perception of them that you're dealing with. Now, that in itself, because there's a difference between the two perceptions, that in itself creates what's known as cognitive dissonance. It's like, how do these two perceptions exist together? This person thinks they're right and this person thinks they're right. So when you create a state of dissonance, that's like a discord between them, a kind of tension between those two things that you've brought to your conscious mind. You've created a state of change. That in itself creates a momentum for change. And this is the beauty of these processes. It's not about what can you do about this. Those words just don't function in these scenarios, in this style of coaching. You've already unsettled things in such a way that something's going to give. Now, the risk is that when you experience somebody else's perceptions being different to your own, the temptation is to look for proof that you're right. That's what some people will do, look for proof to remove the discord. They'll look and seek opinions to prove that they are right in the situation. But remember, it's not just about this situation. So having stepped into the other person's shoes, break state, shake it off. And then come into this third party meta position, this dissociated state where you can look at yourself out there and the other person as if you are an observer, as a fly on the wall, as we would say. This is where I think the clever stuff comes in, where it goes beyond now being about just this scenario. In this situation, one of the things that you can do is like say, well, what's happening here? You go, well, in general, you don't have to go into specific. What's happening here? Well, he's got a point of view and he's not listening to her point of view and she's getting annoyed. And the more she gets annoyed, the more he backs off and da, 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 da. So it's a more scenario. The more you do that, the more they do that. The more they do that, the more you do that. That's how this cycle exists. Now then the opportunity is now to move it up a level in the logical levels. So the question now is, using one of the beliefs of excellence, what's the unconscious positive intention behind the other person's behavior towards the you in this scenario? That doesn't mean what do they intend for you, what are they thinking. It's not at all to do with what's in their head or their mind. It's like, what is this scenario and what's happening here designed to teach you? So for example, supposing this scenario is designed to teach you how to listen to others before putting your own point of view, not just this person. Maybe it's designed for you to learn how you deal with people in situations. Supposing you have a typical reaction to certain women, for example, or certain men, types of men. Here is the opportunity. So only you can answer this. What's the unconscious, what's the purpose? What's the universe wishing for you to learn? Now, the answer to this question is not at the level of behavior. It's not what you're going to do here. You've missed the opportunity if you do that. The answer is at the level of capabilities and above or above. So for example, it's to learn a skill for life that you have not been applying in situations where you could. It's to take on a belief that people have all the resources and to be able to trust them, for example. So the learning is at a higher level, which makes the learning generic, not a fix-it specific behavior. That's a key bit of this whole process. It takes it into another realm when you do that. Then the question is, does the you out there, over there, because you're still dissociated, to incrementally test that the you over there can take this on, this learning. And so often that's done incrementally. It's like, well, can you imagine, is the you over there capable of taking this learning? Well, the answer is yes, but it's important that you acknowledge that to yourself. Can you imagine you taking this learning on board, and what's that like? And are you willing to commit to taking this learning on board? For you over there, this is before you step back into your own shoes. And if it's a yes, then it's okay. With this commitment to this learning, which is generic learning, return back into your own shoes and experience what this is like now. Now, when I've coached people doing this, when they step back and they've changed, they'll have whereas perhaps they were tense before, they've suddenly got an insight, and they've got a state of ease, and just the state has changed to one of a resourcefulness in some way. And you can then ask yourself, if you're that person, so can you imagine going forward with this learning in place, and what effect that's going to have on people with whom you have had this kind of pattern playing before? Okay. And now the temptation of someone saying, what are you going to do? If you do that, you've taken it right back to a behavioral fix, and you've wasted time. Leave it. The learning's taken place. It's got a momentum. Let it unfold. Trust that if it's you're doing it to yourself, it'll unfold. And it's the state that you have now that matters.